Now, 1 in every 5 women and 1 in every 70 men will be raped at some point in their lives. And though many of you may think that this data reflects one of an underdeveloped country, it actually reflects the United States population. I did a head count just a second ago. There's about 15 girls in here, which means that statistically 3 of you will have experienced something awful in your lifetime. If not, we're the lucky ones. And many of you, if not all of you, will meet a victim of rape at some point in your life. Jackson Katz addresses issues like this on a daily basis in his talk about gender violence. He's an American filmmaker, author, educator, as well as the co-founder of the Mentors and Violence Prevention Program against gender violence. Violence against women is a men's issue, given by Mr. Katz in 2012, achieved its purpose of introducing the audience to the bystander approach against gender violence through his use of rhetorical appeals. Now, many of you may be wondering, why should we choose Mr. Katz to listen to him above everybody else? Now, first of all, he's worked with many reputable sources. For example, he's worked with the US Air Force before on the bystander approach. The bystander approach is when a bystander, someone who is neither victim nor perpetrator in gender violence, takes an active stand to stop gender violence. Or, just in pure culture, make sure that sexism and gender violence is no longer acceptable. He's also worked with the US Navy Corps before, and he's the director of their first international violence protection program. Not only has he worked with these 2 awesome sources, he's also worked with many universities and colleges, as well as professional sports teams in the NFL to stop gender violence. Now, his TED Talk is an amazing TED Talk, and its intended audience is for the general public, but specifically males, because males are often left out of the gender violence conversation when they should not be. They're just as part of this problem and is deeply ingrained in the system as women are. They're victims, they're perpetrators, and they need to be in the conversation. In hopes that more of you will be listening, I'll be showing you a clip of his speech today.
And actually, let me illustrate that confusion by way of analogy. So let's talk for a moment about race. In the US, when we hear the word race, a lot of people think that means African American, Latino, Asian American, Native American, South Asian, Pacific Islander, on and on. A lot of people, when they hear the word sexual orientation, think it means gay, lesbian, bisexual. And a lot of people, when they hear the word gender, think it means women. In each case, the dominant group doesn't get paid attention to, right? As if white people don't have some sort of racial identity or belong to some racial category or construct. As if heterosexual people don't have a sexual orientation. As if men don't have a gender. This is one of the ways that dominant systems maintain and reproduce themselves, which is to say the dominant group is rarely challenged to even think about its dominance, because that's one of the key characteristics of power and privilege.
Now, for those of you who didn't quite grasp what that clip was trying to say, he was talking about how the dominant group, in many situations, is rarely paid attention to. They are able to slip under the radar, allowing them to stay dominant. In the case of race, in America, we're dominantly white. But white people have a race too, and they need to be part of the conversation. When it comes to sexual orientation, people tend to think it means the LGBT+ community, as if straight people don't have a sexual orientation. They are just important in the conversation. When people hear gender violence, they think women's violence. It's not women's violence, it's gender violence. Violence against all genders, and all genders need to be included in the conversation. Now, this clip itself shows pathos. He's trying to get everyone to self-reflect and think about how deeply ingrained the system has become in our society, how we rarely challenge dominance, how we let power stay in control. Now, later on in the video, he has another segment in which he goes over a series of sentences, an evolution of sentences, if you will, where the conversation starts with the sentence, John beats Mary. And through just a series of short sentences, we somehow end it with Mary is a battered woman, where John has been completely eliminated from the conversation. Mary's very identity is now a battered woman. Now that is a significant thing to show you, that a lot of the times the perpetrators are allowed to slip under the radar in gender violence because nobody thinks about them. They think about the victim. That is meant to make everyone think about how they talk about gender violence, how they talk in everyday society, how what we say does have an impact on how gender violence is approached. Now, that sentence, those series of sentences are also shown through logos. It's very logical. It's not a sudden jump from John beats Mary to Mary the battered woman. He goes through a couple sentences in the middle, and they're very short, and there's very few changes between each sentence, but it very quickly gets to Mary as a battered woman. And now, when we talk about Mary being a battered woman, we're talking about the victim now, which brings him on to the next piece of information he shares with the audience, victim blaming, and how prevalent it is in the studies that he's done. Now, victim blaming is very much so a real thing. Some people don't think it's a real thing. Victim blaming is when you question the victim and act as if they were the one at fault in the case of gender violence. They are not the one at fault. Now, that comes with questions when women are asked, why did you go out that night? Why did you go and have that drink? Why did you hang out with the men? And when men are asked questions like, why couldn't you fend for yourself? Why weren't you strong enough? That is all part of gender violence. That is part of sexism, and it needs to stop. Now, Jackson Katz uses ethos, pathos, and logos to introduce a larger audience to the bystander approach in hopes that all of you will stop this here society in which gender violence and sexism is okay. Now, everyone should watch this video today. They should watch it tomorrow. It'll always be relevant. It'll be relevant until gender violence diminishes from society. Because in no way is gender violence okay. Gender violence affects everyone. It's not about men and females. It's not about any of the genders in between. It's about people fighting for the rights of people and people protecting other people. So we should all be part of the conversation.